Hello, my name is Amber Patterson. The subject for today is Fiscal Management in Healthcare. Sources I will reference will be our textbook, Healthcare Finance Basic Tools for Non-Financial Managers by Baker & Baker, and personal reference. Fiscal management involves a relationship between various elements. In order to effectively manage the process of fiscal management, one must understand how the relationship among these elements work and how one affects the other. Managers possess one of three viewpoints. The financial view revolves around daily finance work and reporting functions and is usually involved in strategic planning. The financial manager is involved in planning, controlling, organizing and directing, and decision-making. However, the organization cannot solely depend on the financial manager for the success or failure of the organization. Delivery in all aspects of the organization is critical to ensure success, which is why it is important for administrators to understand each view and the importance of proper integration and implementation of processes. The process view revolves around processes within the system of the organization. It may be responsible for data accumulation and is usually involved with the information system hierarchy. Process view is how to do things the right way. The clinical view revolves around service delivery, having direct interaction with the patients who are responsible for clinical and quality outcomes. For example, from a financial view, a manager can pull a report to analyze the first quarter revenue and compare it to the company's benchmark. But not reported in the data is why or why not the company is maximizing revenue. From a process view, if revenue is down for the quarter, the accounts receivable balances may not be worked timely, or the front desk may create too many errors, resulting in delayed payments from insurance companies. Another reason is that providers may have been out of the office, thus the production is down and so is the revenue. Clinically, if the correct clinical guidelines are not followed, or if a patient is not satisfied, ultimately it can affect the bottom line. As a result, administrators must understand how each component affects the other, because at some point it affects revenue stream. Personally, I have witnessed how a breakdown can harm the entire system. Currently in our practice, we are working on the disconnect between the nurses obtaining pre-authorizations for CTs before we bill them, because we are losing revenue due to lack of authorization. Also, the healthcare industry is moving in the direction of quality outcomes and payments being tied directly to quality outcomes. From a clinical standpoint, poor outcomes will negatively impact reimbursements in the future, as providers are responsible for reporting certain quality measures. We are also working on provider production reports so that we can compare how much revenue each provider makes versus how much the provider costs and what it costs the company for a provider to be out of the office. Supply and demand in service recently resulted in us hiring another mid-level provider. The most exponential impact we recently faced was $1 million decrease in revenue after Medicare cut reimbursement for a procedure by 69%. As a result, we had to carefully plan in order to overcome the loss. This took financial, process, and clinical views. The only true drawback of each is when one suffers from tunnel vision. If any of the managers are unable to understand how each view affects the other, then they may not be able to recognize any disconnect, which can be detrimental to the company. Luke 14:28-30 says, "For which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, 'This man began to build and was not able to finish.'" In Luke 14, Christians must consider the cost of pledging their allegiance to Christ. but in the text it appeals to finances and literally represents the cost of not properly planning. As Christians, we must plan, prepare, and handle ourselves intellectually by being diligent in our actions. From personal experience, being a manager, understanding the financial process and clinical views, one must be completely meticulous and carefully consider how each and every process, procedure, or decision may affect the organization. Finally, God asks us to honor Him in all that we do, including our work ethics. Colossians 3:23 says, "Whatever you do, work heartily, as for the Lord and not for men." Fiscal management is not just a concept, but a process we must understand and treat responsibly to honor our work and honor God. Thank you.